So then the wage inflation kicks in, and by 2026, the Fed are going to have to deal with it. So the cyclical elements of inflation, I can see, but I don't think it happens this year. Could it happen at the tail end of this year? But it's going to be early stage, right? Because we're still deflating.
Hey guys, welcome back to Everyday Finance. In this video, Raoul Pal discusses crypto according to Raoul Pal. Raoul Pal's perspective is that this year it continues to deflate. Now, if Andreas is discussing based on the election results, what will happen? Well, that's just how things unfold sometimes. What comes next in the year 2025? It would be reasonable to aim for that by the age of 25, experience a complete economic rebound. We will actually be growing at a rapid pace. Wage inflation is expected to rise, and the Fed will need to address it by 2026 due to the cyclical nature of inflation. Raoul can see the possibility of it happening towards the end of the year, but he's not convinced it will happen this year. We are currently in the early stages because we are still experiencing deflation. The time horizon is a crucial factor to consider. Anyone who is creating a chart resembling the 1970s inflation is simply talking nonsense. Just don't. Raoul Pal can see that happening. There will definitely be a cyclical pickup. Does the rebound occur due to the annual or multi-year effects resulting from the delay? Data Plus, do you have any insights on tightly regulated markets? What is the potential inflation rate this time? 4% as a numeral and a half fine. Will the Fed take action? Maybe they will implement yield curve control because they might see that the situation is not ideal. Concerned about that? Raoul believes it will be the focus of the next cycle, and lots of things Raoul Pal discussed. So please watch the video to end, and share this video, and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance. Thanks.
The current inflation and how it deflates and the lagged effects. So my view is this year it keeps deflating. Now, if what Andreas is talking about is based on, the outcome of the election, what happens, that's something that happens the following year. So that's 2025. And for it to actually be reasonable, right, by 2025, we'll be in full economic recovery. In fact, we'll be growing at a great clip. So then the wage inflation kicks in, and by 2026, the Fed are going to have to deal with it. So the cyclical elements of inflation, I can see, but I don't think it happens this year. Could it happen at the tail end of this year? But it's going to be early stage, right? Because we're still deflating. So again, there's an element of time horizon. I do think that anybody who's producing that chart of the 1970s inflation all over again is just talking nonsense. I just don't see that happening. Of course, there'll be a cyclical pickup, and at what level does the rebound because of the year on year or the multi-year effects because of the lag data, plus, anything to do with tight labor markets? What could inflation go to this time around? 4%? 4.5%? Fine. Will the Fed do something? Maybe they do yield curve control because they realize that it's not that. So I'm not worried about that yet. I think that's the next cycle's concern. I've had a model recommended portfolio with P&L since day one, since 2005. So I've had 19 years of track record, and that holds you accountable to the element that Andreas was talking about. When you're wrong, it's there in paper. When you have a terrible year, it is there on paper. When you have amazing years, it's there on paper. So that's one thing I do that almost nobody does, bizarrely. And the other thing is just how I approach the world and my time horizon is so different. There are plenty of people who do big picture, long-term thinking, but they don't apply it to markets, time horizons, business cycles. And then creating spin-off tools, different parts of the research bucket, like exponential age. I know Andreas is doing this with his research service as well, taking bits out to hyperserve people. But the kind of breadth of GMI, I don't think anybody writes anything like that. The breadth and depth, it's 130 pages once a month, written by me and Julian. And within it, it's secular cycles, business cycles, technical analysis, observations, sentiments. It's a huge piece of work that follows a narrative arc that's existed over 19 years. When I started it, I started with a hypothesis that the biggest economic trend of our lifetimes would be debt, deflation, and demographics. And that kind of nailed the last 2 decades. And now I've started developing more around the exponential age and what that means for economies. I spend a lot of time thinking, what is the world going to look like after 2030? I don't think most people has a clue how complicated that is to answer. Even what economies look like, what businesses look like, what financial markets look like. How do financial markets operate when there's an AGI? How does investing work? I mean, these things are why I spend my life, and then I work backwards into the actionability of now, of how do I make money out of the big structural shifts. I don't use geopolitics apart from at very basic level. India being strategic importance and the role of Saudi in the Middle East, stuff like that, the role of Israel. So I tend not to use geopolitics, and I absolutely don't get involved with current narratives, really.
Raoul Pal is now delving deeper into the exponential age and its implications for economies. He has been dedicating a significant amount of time to this, after spending a significant amount of time pondering about the world's future post 2030. It's clear that many individuals may not have a solid grasp on what to expect. It's quite complex to explain how economies, businesses, and finance operate, how financial markets function when faced with an uncertain situation. AG, how does investing function? These concepts are his life's focus. He then analyzes how to make money from these significant structural changes and works towards actionable steps. He avoids discussing geopolitics beyond a fundamental understanding. India understands the strategic importance of Saudi Arabia's role in the Middle East and related matters. Israel tends to avoid geopolitics, while Raoul absolutely refrains from getting involved in current narratives. Let's back to the Raoul Pal interview.
Okay, that's another whole question. Let me give you the whole framework of what I do, what my process is, and then we'll talk a bit about books. So on a real-time basis, I have my watch lists open. So I'm monitoring market price action. And really, I'm not looking for trade ideas so much as, is a hypothesis working? Is something happening on a basis that I don't understand? Secondly, Twitter. I spend all day there just observing stuff. What is sentiment? What are people talking about? Is there something I'm missing? Is there something people are getting stressed over? Are people, whatever it may be. So I always have a whole set of charts that I run through. So I'm just always looking at charts. So again, price action, economic action, watch lists. So that keeps me in touch, and I'm not looking for trades. I'm looking for trends, things that are happening that could be interesting. I then take notes. So I just jot things down. Don't take long form notes anymore because I managed to hold the whole thing in my head because I'm so used to doing it. My long form note is Global Macro Investor, is Pro Macro, is MIT, stuff like that. But really, it's notes. So I always have notes where I'm jotting down, that was interesting. Have you thought about that? How does this connect with that? Connections. I'm always trying to join dots. Then I bookmark a lot from Twitter of things that made me think, or things that got a reaction out of me, good or bad. Then when I get it all together, I write. Writing is the best process I've ever had, but for thinking about ideas properly. So GMI really for me is my ability to sit over this weekend when I come to Little Cayman and put everything in my head down in a structured format to make sense of it. Often, I don't even know what I'm going to say. It just comes out. It's like automatic writing. It's a really weird process. So writing something down. And then what I've become really good at, and it kind of goes with Andreas's idea, is I used to do a lot of these tourist trades. Hey, that's breaking out. There's something here. I don't do any of it anymore. In fact, I do very few trades. What I now do is I look for the single best expression of a big picture macro view that works, distill everything down to the idiot-proof way of doing it, and do that. And that's really worked in this world where so many things are correlated. it's very easy to want to do everything. And I just basically simplify down to what is the single most powerful expression of this thing.
And to Gary's book question?
So I read a lot of books. And I used to use a lot of fiction. Now I don't read any at all. Really, it's growing knowledge in areas that I don't have, but I have an interest. So I've gone down the longevity route. I've gone down the AI, robotics, exponential technologies route. I've gone down the understanding the past, present, and future of humanity. So that's sociology meets technology, which would be stuff like Sapiens or Guns, Germs, and Steel. I read a lot of those kind of books that kind of hurt your brain. But what they do is they create new connections in your brain with things you weren't thinking about. I'll then go back and read classics, like I'll read something like some of Soros's books again. And really it's to, again, just remind me of how his macro framework and how he thought, and also to understand periods of the past, because we always think everything is kind of unique, but it rhymes. But when you hear people's emotions from the past, you kind of can check in with yourself. So I do a lot of that. And I read about a lot of different leaders as well, because you get insights into how they see their mental model of the world.
Raoul Pal is closely monitoring market price action, not so much for trade ideas, but to test a hypothesis. Working occurs regularly, but he doesn't fully comprehend it. He spent the entire day on Twitter just observing things and analyzing sentiment. Is there something he's missing? Are people getting stressed over something? People are talking, whatever it may be. He always has a complete set of charts that he runs through, constantly analyzing price action. Monitoring the economic activity watch list helps me stay informed about trends rather than actively seeking trades. Keep an eye out for interesting developments and make sure to take notes. Just jot down any important points. He no longer takes extensive notes because he can remember everything so well from his experience. A long-form note focuses on global macro investing with a professional macro perspective, similar to MIT's approach. If you learned something from this video, then please like this video and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance, and we will meet in next video. Thanks.